Welcome to another episode of 33 Fuel podcast. My name is Erika. I'm one of the co-founders of 33 Fuel Natural Sport Nutrition. And today's guest is Kerry Sutton. She is a running coach and she is a very, very, very tough ultra runner. Kerry was on the podium for the jungle of Peru, on the mountains of Nepal, and on the Thames Path, a 100 miles run. She completed also the MDS. She was in first place of the Eat of Fiji. She is also an ambassador for the Street Child Sierra Leone. That is a charity to support vulnerable children to go to school. She likes to push herself to the unknown, and she also and she has all the tools and passion to help people building self-confidence and self-belief. We will speak about unexpected and fear, because not all the races that goes as expected. We will have a chat about her terrifying experience during the Spine race. There is a crazy race, multi-day, 430 kilometer race. And in fact, it is considered one of the world's toughest endurance race. All of this fits in our mission at 33 Fuel. We want to give and to share to athletes the best possible tools and nutrition to be able to take their performance and health to the highest level. We do it by sharing content like this one, and we do it also in store at 33fuel.com, where you can find the best, finest, high-performance natural sport nutrition. So if you are searching something that raises your game, check us out at 33fuel.com. But let's now listen to Kerry Sutton. Today is April 24th, 2020, and we are all in lockdown because of the COVID-19. So there is a common feeling of fear, instability, and pressure given by the unknown. So let's listen to Kerry, where we are exploring fear, challenges, and gratitude. Welcome, Kerry. It's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast here at the show. I love to start this episode speaking about the Spine race. That actually is one of the world's toughest endurance races. So it's such a truly, I can call it, epic challenge. So you were a potential podium finisher, as you were a third place woman. So until something happened. So tell me what's happened.
Yeah, well, as with any race, and particularly this one, which whilst it's an endurance race, it's a very long race, I'd also put it in the category of a sort of an adventure, not an adventure race in the sense, but an adventure in that there's so many component parts to it. And yeah, it was all going extremely well. I was loving it. It had challenged me many times over. I had seen so many different facets of life flash before my eyes, from, people who were being sort of ill on the course, who couldn't keep any food down, people who were extremely fatigued and showing all sorts of symptoms through that. And I even met one chap at one point, and he just said, I was passing him, and he said, I've had to pull out because my ex-wife has got into hospital and is potentially going to die. So I mean, it really was, the scale of this thing was just, it's everything that life might throw at you sort of condensed into however long it's going to take you, but the maximum of sort of 6 days. So I was going well, I was feeling well, I was eating well, I was feeling strong. And I felt I'd managed myself pretty well until this point when I went through a particularly bad signal place. Well, there was no signal, and I hadn't been for a number of hours. It's a bit of a black spot. And then my GPS was playing up slightly, which I'd relied on so much, and it had been an absolute lifesaver in so many of different parts of the race. That was playing up slightly. I was starting to really notice the effects of fatigue. And this was my first, not multi-day, but consecutive multi-day, whereby once the clock started, as it had done on the Sunday morning, it didn't stop until you stopped at the end. So it's up to you when you sleep, it's up to you when you rest. And obviously, if you want to be competitive, you have to manage that quite carefully, and you don't want to be, having a full 6 hours each night, because it's not going to, it's only going to send you to the back of the pack. So you have to manage that quite carefully. Now, I haven't done that before, so it was a sort of an adventure into the unknown. And reflecting back now, possibly I hadn't got that balance quite right. I was finding it very hard to sleep, and in fact, hadn't had much sleep at all. Whilst I had gone into the restrooms, my body, the pain in my hips, just wouldn't let me sleep. So I had possibly had at the very most a broken 2 hours up to this point, and I was about 70 odd hours in. So it's a considerable amount of time to be without sleep. And so I got onto this ridge, and I wasn't far from the checkpoint. I was extremely keen to get to this one particular checkpoint. I was needing some rest and just to sort of regroup in my mind. And like I said, I lost my GPS system. I couldn't quite find where I was, and then one thing led to another, and I started to make some silly mistakes. And I went down this sort of what do you call it, sort of decline in this sort of ravine, which was very rocky. And I started going down, and there was this sort of doubts in my mind. I'm like, this can't be right. This is too dangerous. Would they really send us down here? Is this honestly, part of the path? And at that point I went, no, it isn't. So I've got to therefore just stop, regroup. And, but it was really steep. So I sat down, and then I thought, well, the GPS gave me some sort of sense of the location being over to my right. So I thought, well, if I shuffle along on my bum, and then sort of I will eventually meet this sort of rock face, which to me didn't look very high. And I've done an amount of rock climbing. I thought, well, I'll be able to scale that, get up onto the ridge, and off we go again. I mean, cold light of day would have said, why don't you just retrace your steps? But one thing led to another, and I didn't. And I tried to shimmy along this edge, but with the amount of rainfall we'd had, the terrain was really slippery, and I wasn't even able to hold on to the grass. So I was slipping down. I took my gloves off, which was I needed to do because I had these massive mittens on, which meant I couldn't actually hold on and get a good grip. So I took those off, but also that isn't a wise decision when the temperatures are really low. It was 4 a.m. I was cold. I was very wet. Possibly not the right move either. Catalogue, you can see building up of mistakes I made. Anyway, I realized I wasn't going to get across. So then I decided I'd go straight up behind me, because I was sort of halfway across this wall. So I started to climb up. I started to climb up the wall, but the rock face was really jaggedy, and it was coming away in my hands. It was very wet because of all the water coming over it. And I realized that wasn't going to work. So I was sort of halfway up, clinging to this rock face. There weren't many places to put my feet, thinking, I can't do this. And very quickly went from, I'll sort this out. I'm going to be on the path to, oh my God, I'm in a very dangerous situation here. And very quickly went, I'm going to die. I mean, I just can't get out of this. I can't go up because I can't hold on to the rock face. And it was, it was steep. It was right. It wasn't very high. It wasn't very tall, but it was very steep. And without being able to hold on properly, my hands were very cold because I didn't have gloves on. I started to shiver and shake quite, violently. But there was no mobile signal, so I wasn't able to reach anybody. However, I had just a flicker of 2 bars, and I remember texting one of the support guys who I happened to know, who was in the the support crew, and he couldn't answer me because he was already on another emergency somewhere else. So then I rang James, my partner, who obviously works for you as well, and I just said, and I think my poor guy, I woke him up 4:30 in the morning, and I just said, James, I'm going to die. I mean, I can't imagine it's what anybody wants to hear. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I can't go forwards and I can't go backwards, and I'm stuck and I'm frozen. So he was just like, well, trying to talk me through. The phone kept dropping out. Occasionally I'd get some signal and I was calling him back. To be honest, the whole thing is a real blur. I think I was in shock. I was terribly fearful. I started saying, what am I doing? Never on any of my ultras have I done this before, but what am I doing? I've got children and I'm balancing on this rock where if I fall off, because it's the middle of the night, I can't actually see how far down I will go, other than that I know it's very steep. So I don't know what will arrest my fall. And I really did think I was going to die. Eventually, James said to me, we had downloaded this app, which name escapes me just now. These 3 words or something, which gives you an accurate location point, and it works anywhere in the world. Yes. And thank God we did, because I was able to then ring the police, give them my location. And because I didn't have much reception, they weren't able to call me back, and the mountain rescue weren't able to call me, because there's a whole procedure they go through to communicate with the person that's stuck. Anyway, because they had this code, they then sent out the mountain rescue. To be honest, the rest of it is a total blur. I don't remember them coming and getting me. I do know that I was there. It did turn light, so it would have been about 2 hours. I was standing holding on to this rock face, trying not to fall asleep, because I was frightened if I did, I would fall off and die. And it was terrifying. I mean, it was really terrifying. And it's probably the first time I've been in such a position. They were amazing. The mountain rescue were fantastic. And they had to strap themselves to rocks, and they had pulley systems. And I know they kept waking me up and asking me questions, and then I would sort of drop off again. But I do remember that there was somebody holding me under my arms. He was hanging over a rock behind me. They'd got me off this sheer bit, and then they were trying to make what do you call it? Oh goodness, my mind. A sort of a pulley system whereby they could winch me down off the hill down to the bottom, which we could now see where the bottom was. So it's like a stretcher, which it had a big cage on it, and I was completely tied in. And then they winched me down slowly until we could get down to the farm at the bottom, the whole thing taking about 5 hours. And they were unbelievable. In that hour of need, those men were so kind and considerate and warm. They were everything you could have wanted. So, yeah. It was quite a moment.
Wow, that's a very incredible, intense situation, and it's very, very difficult also when you find yourself in that kind of situation, how to take a decision.
Yeah, Erica, you're so right. There's a very big difference between the two. I think your rush decision is sort of the fight or flight mechanism. And certainly in this situation, I didn't need that most of the time. I didn't need to rely on that. I did have time, and I could have made, I think I made a rush decision where I didn't need to. The thing that was obviously playing against me was I didn't have real clarity of thought because of sleep deprivation, which is obviously something I would go back to the drawing board on next time and really make sure that I didn't get myself into that position where I was so tired I was making silly decisions. So yeah, I did jump too quickly when I should have really sat down. I could have really waited until the sun had come up, which would have been an hour. I could have used the time to refuel myself and really get myself together before heading on again. And I think that would have been a wise decision. So yes, I was sort of under the false feeling that I needed to move quickly to keep my position, although I'm not even sure really that my position really came into my mind. But I was very much, I had this sort of race mentality that I needed to keep moving forward at a consistent pace rather than sort of sitting down for an hour, because I wasn't taking big breaks anywhere. Once I set off from a checkpoint, I never sat down other than, as I said, that 5 seconds to just rest my head. So my mentality was to keep moving forward at all times. And I think that cost me, it cost me the race, sadly. But there's the point at which I need to, reflect on that and grow next time. Interesting, because I figure I'm somebody who really, when put in a position of fear, as I have been in the past, I generally become terribly calm and quite lucid. And So I was surprised, retrospectively, to see that I did make that daft decision, really. And things could have played out so much better. But, again, we live and learn, don't we?
Oh, absolutely. So, looking back on the situation, what have you learned about yourself?
Oh,
I mean, how you created. Let's call it. Let's say how you create a toolkit to take advantage next time that you have to take a decision in a similar situation. So, what you have learned from that situation and from yourself, of course.
Definitely that there's room for pause, and just to take stock, give myself a moment, use that time wisely. So obviously, as I said, just to refuel myself, that time isn't wasted. For the moment that I might have sat down there, refueled, got myself warm again because I was quite cold. Maybe I should have even have just sat and had a moment's sleep. It might have all then helped me be that much faster further down the track. So one takeaway is to not be frightened of the pause. To use that pause in an effective way, to then make yourself stronger in the long run. It's shown me that I need to, in that particular sort of race, I need to try to get more sleep. It's not that I didn't want sleep, but I struggled with it, and it didn't pay well. But I think that would be the main one, is to not be frightened of the pause, because ultimately it can make you stronger in the long run.
Very interesting, very interesting. So, that it was a situation and decision that you took at the moment, and you can't do, because of course that is what did happen, and that is what did happen. So, looking back in time, so now that you have time, and you have time, lots of time actually, to think about that that decision that they are impossible to change. How, if somebody find himself in a situation similar where you find yourself, which kind of advice you will give when you find your life that is in danger, as you find yourself, in that extreme situation? What you will advise? What you will advise?
I mean, it obviously depends whether you need to use that fight or flight sort of reflex, and in that situation you have to then rely on your own intuition and understanding of the situation. So I'm not sure there's much advice you can give there, because I think that comes down to your sort of own life skills, where you draw on a whole gamut of things that you put into play in that immediate situation. But in my one, where I did have time to make a decision and I kept pushing forward instead of reflecting on what was going on, certainly to just draw on myself, sit, have a look at the whole situation, have a look at my whole physicality, as I've mentioned before. But I think then maybe even draw on somebody else. This is where a backup crew would be very good. So somebody who knows you well. Certainly if you feel that sense of panic rising in you, where maybe your own perspectives and views will be compromised. And again, like mine, I was very fatigued. So I wasn't making clear decisions. If you have the opportunity then to call a friend, and they can help assess the situation with a degree of clarity, then that would be able to, I would use that as well. Those would be the tools that I would use at my disposal. But I have to come back to the one I said before. I think the main thing is just to not be frightened of spending a quality half an hour, whatever it takes, to just really to really get a grip of the situation, get a grip of yourself. To do so, particularly on a race of that long, half an hour really is not going to be. It could be critical later on. It's not going to be so important at that point. It's a race of 100 odd hours. So to take half an hour of a wise sort of period of thinking time is not going to hinder you too much. So I think I come back to that again, really. But also, if you are feeling a sense of panic and fear, then you can draw on somebody else. Or what I will do next time is draw on that situation. And if I find myself in a similar situation, just go back to that and say, what did I learn? What did I think I should have done better? And try and employ those things.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Put yourself again in the same situation with a new perspective, with new eyes, with the knowledge of what did happen. So it's actually very wise. So you are speaking quite a lot of fear, because in reality, actually, fear, for sure, you find yourself in a feeling of fear. And
Yes.
speaking of fear, speaking about at this moment that we are all in lockdown, because of the COVID-19, there is a common feeling of fear, instability, pressure given by the unknown, So I would imagine, how are you dealing now with fear? Did you change the way? Because not just this experience, because I would imagine with all the races you've done, you probably experienced fear previously. Or did you? Or you never did before?
Yes, I have felt fear before. A different type of fear, not such immediate fear, but I have in one of the jungle ultras I did, where I was very remote, and we had no GPS and no tracker system, and I was running through a river, and I saw some local people on the other side. I mean, we were really in the middle of nowhere. And without going into another laborious story, I really, again, I did think of my children at that point. And I suppose as soon as I draw on that, and my reference point is, I am a mum of 4 kids, I should not be putting myself in this situation, which makes me then really assess what I'm doing and think about them, not just my own desire to reach my goal, because ultimately, I need to go home to them. I have a responsibility to be there for them. So that's quite a good leveler. And certainly, if my sort of headstrongness to charge on and meet my targets gets the better of me, and I slip into this position of danger or fear, that is a good one to pulls me back, reins me in, and says, look, this is not about you anymore. This is about the 4 children who rely on you at home. And whilst that doesn't compromise me too much, it will also help me, I hope, make better decisions. But to go on to your question of the sort of the lockdown and the fear for well, there's a lot of fear people have for many different reasons, and it would be hard to list them all. I think for me, it's controlling controllables. It's an often cited phrase, but it's really true. There is so much about what's going to happen in the future. When will we come out of this? Will businesses go back to normal? Our races, talking obviously in the physical sphere here, will races come back on? And I've got a lot of clients who are not sure whether to train, to not train. What are they training for? Their goals have gone, which means their focus has gone, which actually has impact on their wider life, because of all the sort of the sense of strength and sense of self they get from that. So I just pare it back and, what is it? We don't know when we're going to get out of this. So what can you do on a day-to-day level that will bring you satisfaction, that will bring you calm, change the way you look at your daily structure. I've just written a piece on sort of creating a little bit of space for yourself. If you're somebody who has an awful lot of family members in the house, it will obviously be different if you're living on your own. But if you've got a lot of people, there's very little time for your own space, your own sense of, God, what am I thinking, feeling, and want out of all of this? So it's not a case of changing behavior. It's just a case of looking for those moments of space and optimizing them, not, scrolling through your phone perhaps, or going on a run and listening to something that fills your brain, it's actually allowing your brain to have time to fill itself with its own thoughts, which allows you to process, maybe getting up half an hour earlier, which is something I've wanted to do for years, doing yoga, and I've never got round to it. But now I'm getting up half an hour earlier and doing yoga. James goes outside and sits with a cup of tea and has some space in the garden. And we've just been very aware that we need to create our own just moments of space to allow that sense of calm. I think calm in the face of fear, calm in the face of uncertainty. And obviously the physical side is so important for so many of us, and even those who didn't know the power of going out for a run or going out for a walk are suddenly noticing how good it is for them and how much they enjoy it, and it becomes something around which you build your day, if it's on your own or with the family. So it's putting in place really workable solutions on a day-to-day, micro level, which will then, it's baby steps, isn't it? Those then make you stronger to face the longer term issue of how long is this? Is it 2 weeks? Is it 3 weeks? Could it be longer than that? So I think it's a case of bringing everything back to the sort of the here and now, the present. And what can I do now, as opposed to worrying about what I'm going to do in 4, 5, 6 months' time, because I don't think any of us really know, to be honest. This is so unprecedented.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Actually, I was just reading an article the other day, and it says that the World Health Organization has started to use the phrase physical distancing instead of social distancing. Yes. I find it really interesting because realistically, social distancing or isolation is not very good for the mental well-being. No. So maintaining a physical distance is absolutely essential, but it doesn't mean that socially you have to be disconnected from your family and friends.
Oh gosh, that's so right. And in fact, exactly the opposite. In times like of fear and uncertainty, what you do need is social, integration. You need, we all need to be helping, people who are stuck in really unfortunate circumstances. But also, I found with my my different running groups and my circuit sessions, the value in all just coming together and doing something as a united group, even if it's a circuit session. And there isn't even much chat. It's just the fact that we're all performing the same thing at the same time, and we know we're together as a little community. I do run. I've got various run groups, and I'm setting them sort of weekly challenges, and then the chat that comes from that. They're both getting the physical, the endorphin side of it. They've got a focus, which means they've got to achieve this challenge within this time frame, which they can also bring their family into as well. But then also the chitter chatter, the WhatsApp messages backwards and forwards, maybe some photos. I think all of that is creating this sense of stillness maybe, but also a sense of unity, which is so important. I love that. I think I haven't heard that, and I think that's really valuable what you've just said.
Yeah, I think in reality reinforce. So you're doing actually an amazing job with your community, because you build your community, and you're doing very nicely with your client and in any case with your followers, and that is such a admirable thing. It's really nice that you are giving. So it looks like in this situation that we are now, the beauty is a lot of things that are beautiful that are coming out, and one is giving. You notice there are all of these challenges for charity, and for the NHS, for anyone that need help. Where there is someone that is trying to find a way to give money or hope or inspiring for the less fortunate, basically, or for the NHS that is so busy.
It's a wonderful, it's a really lovely sense of stopping navel gazing, where we're all just gazing at our own sort of microcosm of work and family, and it's sort of a bit of a me culture to looking, opening your eyes and just saying, how can I support? How can I help? And I just think this is such a positive a positive thing to come out of it. I just hope that, we don't sort of end up sort of breaking that all up again by, discussion of, the political side of this, which is, did they do the right thing? Do they have our interests at heart? And all this sort of thing. I think that could be a very negative if our media sort of somehow dilutes all of this good stuff with all of the silly chat about, ultimately we've got to have the conversation in the long run about, how we went about sorting this out as a nation, and how much politics was involved in it. But I think for the moment, like you say, this such a positive, people have started to learn where all of their old people live, which we've never really much cared about before. I've got 2 multiple sclerosis groups, and there's many of the people in there that are completely isolated. They rely on carers coming in once or twice a day. And so again, just like we're speaking now, sort of social media, online groups. I just do a circuits class with them. It becomes a real lifeline for people, and thank heavens for that. But it's also it's a chance to give back to those members of society who, wrongly are often neglected, and I think that's a huge positive.
Yeah, no, that's definitely so. Thanks so much for what you are doing, the contribution that you are bringing, and I was just also very interesting thinking about, direct the discussion toward also the mental well-being, because realistically, all this isolation for some people they will find very difficult, challenging, and I was just thinking, someone like you, that you are an ultra runner, very experienced, you might have found yourself often in some races completely alone, because especially when you're doing longer distance. So how, or what have you learned from your being isolated, but in the way, because you were running in the wild for your decision, and seeing instead the people they are isolated in their house? Do you see something linked? I mean, what did you learn from your experience as a runner? Then you bring it back to people that are maybe alone in their house, if you needed to give us some advice.
Goodness, that's a challenging question. A very good one. Linking the two together, I can answer both of them independently. And how do I link them together? But I think this sense of purpose is really important. Certainly when I'm running and I am out on my own, and it all feels good, and I'm happy, and I know that I have the support whilst they're not there. The support's behind me. And I don't have necessarily a sense of too much fear, then I think that's all easy to manage, and I relish those opportunities. But and I imagine there are some people in isolation who have a lovely family structure. They have people they can talk to, and so then for them it's a case of just making each day sort of worth it, really. What are they going to do each day to bring themselves some satisfaction, to put in some routines, and I think routine is really important. I do that in my running. I've got little routines that I go through, mental routines and physical routines, to just check in on myself. But I think you could also do that in your own home. Maybe set a time when you get up in the morning. Maybe it's every other morning you do something that you like, whether that's, as I said, going outside with a cup of tea and just sitting listening to the dawn chorus, or sitting with a book. Maybe it's yoga, maybe it's a meditation, perhaps it's a circuit session. Something that gives you a routine, gives you a structure. I think the worst thing in all of this is to not really have a purpose. And when I'm running, I call that my why. What is my purpose? Because in those dark times, calling on my why is the thing that will keep me going. I also, and I know this doesn't work for some people, but I reflect on those that are in far worse situation than me. So the one that I use quite a lot when I'm running is, I've chosen to be here. I personally know 2 women who died prematurely leaving very young children, and they would give anything, anything to be in the situation that I'm in, galloping along the countryside, it would be the jungle, mountains, wherever it happens to be, to be living another day, and it's far be it from me to start moaning and say that I'd want to get out of here, I'm not enjoying myself. And that for me is a real, gives me real strength and is a real motivator to put all my woes to one side and really get this done. I've chosen to be here, finish the task, do it as well as I can, and then we carry on with life. And I think possibly you could do that the same when you're locked down. Yes, there will always be people worse off, but sometimes that isn't necessarily much consolation. But I think how am I going to make this work for me, rather than maybe focusing on what you haven't got, start pulling out some positives. Well, I've got time now maybe that I don't have before. We've got lovely weather, which is helping. What can that do for you? Maybe you can at the very least top up on your vitamin D stores, but you could go outside if you're able to, even if it's in a balcony. There is space, if you find it, that can give you joy. And it doesn't need to be a big space. It's just how you use it, how you change your mind from a sort of place of lacking to a place of gain. Maybe you could be the person that befriends someone online, and gives them the support. Like I say, these wonderful people with multiple sclerosis who would love a chat with somebody. Maybe there's a linking system there that we could, from our own sense of isolation, ease someone else's isolation. I appreciate that can be hard when you're in a negative place to sort of reach out to other people. But I think I'd just go back to what I said at the beginning. It's a sense of order. Give yourselves a sense of structure, a sense of order, and purpose, really.
I like,
however small that is.
I like that so much, especially from listening from you that you're a mom of 4 kids. So you might need a lot of that. Yeah. How do you cope with that? How do you organize the order with 4 kids?
A lot of structure. I like to think of it as organized chaos. I think I'm in control, but there's an awful lot of chaos too. But it's everyone owning their space, owning their domain, being respectful of each other's space, and coming together quite a lot and discussing. I think we do a lot of discussing. We talk about what's working, what's not working. Is there anything that we could all help each other with? And sometimes that doesn't really entail very much, and sometimes it does. And I think it's important for James and I, as the grown-ups, to also be open and say what it means to us to be locked down. And I notice a couple of my kids, the fact that they're not seeing their friends so much doesn't matter because they're connecting over social media. But there's the other two. It really does matter. And being sort of respectful of, whilst we might not understand it, that respectful that is a problem for them, and how can we ease that? Yeah.
So it's amazing how the contact through social media and through all the tools like Zoom, Skype, and others give us the tool to connect in such an easy way with friends, family, and new people.
Isn't it invaluable? I mean, I dread to think, were we not to have that, how tricky this would be. It is. I mean, it's second to none. It's brilliant.
Because I do remember when we had a chat just before recording, you were telling me how it was important for you also to create a community. So this way how you could actually interact with people, that it was good for them, but was also good for your personal life.
Yeah. Oh, I get a lot from it too. I mean, my circuit sessions, same time each week with, with the MS lot and also with my other circuits and certainly the run groups. It's given me so much. I love the routine. I love the sense of being able to help and put a smile on their faces. I know that being active to me just completely changes the focus of my day, and I'm hoping that by providing that support to others that's the feedback I get, which is I keep doing it, that it makes a massive difference to them too. And when you see them there and their kids are joining in and and the dog's rolling around next to them, and the whole thing is just a feel good factor. But it's certainly the community I've grown. I mean, if I go sort of further back and get maybe a bit deeper, I've been through a divorce, which turned me inside out, back to front, and took an awful lot of processing, getting over. And at the same time, I was building my business, and that had quite an organic growth, because if I'm really honest, I didn't have the energy and the capacity to be really driven in that sense. I put my energy into my ultra running, and that was my release. My business was something that was growing organically through my passion for running, and also because I was seeing how much difference it had made in my life on those nights where I was very dark. And there were a number of nights when I felt I was in a very bad place and I couldn't see how I was going to get up in the morning, let alone go and meet my run group. And, dawn breaks and you have to get out of bed. And I would be sitting in the car just going, I just don't want to do this. I haven't got the energy. I haven't got the, you need to turn up with a lot of pizzazz, with a lot of spark. They all have their own issues that they were bringing to the table, and I needed to be able to provide that space for them, as well as quietly this sort of space that was giving me so much strength. Because ultimately I did turn up, and I did turn up every time, and I did have a smile on my face, and I was full of energy and sort of motivation and encouragement. And I think sort of the backhander of that was that it was making me continue. It was making me have a purpose. Bring that word back in again, but it did. I had a purpose. I was giving back. It was giving me at the time exactly what I needed. Luckily, it was giving a number of other women quite a bit of support at the time too. And I just think that sense of, we're all still together now. We know we're all, we still meet on a Tuesday. Some people come and go, depending on life commitments and things. But we all appreciate what that group provides to each one of us. We all need things at different times. But there's nothing like a community to really support and nurture, even if I didn't tell them particularly what I was going through. I was there to provide the platform for them to all open up and obviously we're running hard, we're running hills, we're running sprints, so they were getting the endorphins and the physical benefit from it. But it was invaluable, certainly invaluable to me, and I love that. I love that's the way sport gives back, and it's certainly why I'm still in it, why I'm so passionate about it, and I can totally appreciate how it can, really support people's troubled lives.
That's absolutely right, and it's very interesting what you're saying, and very right what you're saying about the community can actually help. But another thing actually can help is the positive self-talk. So the way how you talk to yourself and internally, the dialogue that you have internally with yourself, that is a huge, can create a huge difference between giving up and moving you toward something completely different.
Which again, like your last question was, it's basically, what do you adopt when you're racing? And that's can be mirrored then within your own life, and you can, those two are interchangeable. I certainly think, what you say to yourself, the little visions, the goals, the dreams, the aspirations, what they may seem ethereal, they may seem sort of elusive, but actually very, I've seen a couple of times in my life in a very concrete way, the things that I held in my mind as dreams and, I would love it if, and I would always sort of hark back to them. They became reality, not in any conscious way, but subconsciously, I must have been working towards putting those in place. And so having these dreams is so important because it does definitely lead you towards them, even if you're not conscious of doing that. But I think this negative self-talk, again, I was brought up in a family, it was quite a male-dominated family, but where I didn't feel particularly good. My brothers are extremely good sportsmen, and there was a lot of investment in their sport and a lot of talk about their sport. And mine was much more, well, do your best. Just try and finish rather than a discussion on actually being the best I could be, and actually maybe I would win at some point. So I have struggled with my negative self-talk and the fact that I don't feel I'm good enough quite a lot, and it's an ongoing process because when it happens to you in formative years, it's a very difficult nut to crack and to not hear those voices. The book of The Chimp Paradox is just has got so much richness in it for so many people. And I like many people do, my daughter once said to me, "Mum, don't listen to the devil on the right shoulder, listen to the angel on your left." and I use that so much in races, and I feel that God, I'm not fast enough, and I'm heavy, and look at me, I don't run like this, and I don't do that, which I have to say is less and less these days. But it used to be quite strong, and it was a real limiter. I listened to, but look what you have done, and look what you can do, and look at, you're still going, whereas many people have stopped. This sort of positive self-talk is, we could go on, it's a whole podcast in itself. I'm sure it's a very important part of everyday life, and obviously, in getting the best out of yourself in a race.
Absolutely. I think that is another big thing is the gratitude, for sure.
I love gratitude. Yes, it's a little bit of a buzzword at the moment, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
But I think if we can adopt gratitude and positivity, along with controlling the controllables, then you've got a really tight armory there to get you through this. Again, love what you have, and try and fill the gaps on what you haven't. But it's focusing on this positive energy. It's just, I think more and more we need to use it. But gratitude is something. Again, you have to work at these things. It doesn't come naturally to most people, I don't think. It's got to be a change of mindset to think, no, I'm going to see the positive in things. Yes, it doesn't mean we neglect the negative. It doesn't mean we gloss over the things that aren't working for us. It means that we draw strength from that's working, and use that strength to then pull up the things that aren't working for us, or reshaping them or reframing them into something that can be a positive influence in our life, or a place of growth.
Yeah, absolutely. But as we know, this is what they said, that it takes 21 days to change your habits. So you have to reinforce what you like,
yes.
and
yes.
deny what you don't. So just ignore
Absolutely.
what you don't. So for sure is a practice. Gratitude has to be something that you have to remember yourself to practice gratitude.
Yeah, and I think there's, you remind me. So I've listened to a number of podcasts and read a number of books that there's a number of leaders, world leaders, in their fields that actually do use this of this sort of gratitude. What's the word? And it's not a manual, but at the end of the day, they write down 4 things that they are grateful for. And I think it in doing that, in actually physically writing it down. It does instill, particularly at the end of the day, a sense of positivity before you go to bed, and a sense that the day, has some sort of rosy glow, rosy tint over it, rather than taking to bed woes and fears and sort of pulling yourself down. I think these people that do this just say how absolutely fantastic it is. And that 21 days, well, let's look at that. I mean, you know, we know we're in lockdown now for, well, nearly 20 days. So maybe, you know, that's the time to say, well, you know, come on, let's get a yoga practice in that I can practice for 21 days, or let's get meditation nailed. Let me get some sort of strength work done so that I'm an even better runner when I get out of this. All of these sorts of things that you never have time for in everyday life. Now's the time. Seize the day, as it were.
Yeah, but also you're absolutely right. And also, speaking about the gratitude of telling yourself, write it down, the gratitude. I used to do that actually, and I found
Did you?
yeah, Warren and myself, we used to do it for months and months, and probably we did actually for sure for an entire year. And then it's that kind of thing that then it started to be so natural. Your brain just started
Natural.
to exactly. So we just went with another phase or doing something else. But
Well,
realistically,
and
it does help.
you two embody positivity and positive thinking. So clearly, I mean, you may well have been like that before, but certainly, if there's anyone to be good role models in terms of gratitude and positive and thinking, then it's got to be you two. That's for sure.
Oh, thanks so much. But we try to do it with our mission of trying to make a products that try making products that are healthy and natural for athletes. So you know, for us, it's very important to give to the athletes what they deserve. They put so much effort, and then having junk sport nutrition is
Yeah.
not right. That makes you sick.
No.
Instead, you want something that makes you faster and happier and healthier.
Yes, exactly.
But
Again, it's positive, isn't it?
uh,
It's all having that sort of positive mind, body, soul connection.
But I tell you what, also another thing we used to do, and I always found it really interesting. Any kind of day, you can learn something, even if it's a bad day or it's a good day.
Mm.
So when even it's a bad day, you just say, what did I learn today? And how can I use what I learned from today? And I can use it as an investment for the future. So that it could
Yeah.
be, you know, positive, negative, whatever. So that doesn't. I always think that every day has a little, jewel inside that
Yeah, a
you
jewel,
need
a bit of
to.
learning.
Absolutely, a little bit of learning that you need actually to take appreciably, because realistically, with the COVID-19, today we are here, tomorrow we don't know. There is also more the uncertainty that where you just started to give a value of the word life, because it's
Yes.
so easy to think that we are invincible and we are here forever.
Mm. Yeah, no, absolutely. That we take it all for granted. So yes, it's not taking for granted our own health and those of our loved ones either. I think it's a really positive time to just, you know, take stock of, you know, who means what to you really. Yeah. And you know, I something I was going to get some of my run groups and things to do is just note down 3 to 5 things that you've noticed about yourself that that you're going to focus on. I've got it here. Yeah, what have I learned about myself? I was going to get them to just really think, because I think there's so much that we all feel differently at the moment. And this is obviously for those that are in a positive place. But you know, what have I learned about me and about my life in this lockdown that I really want to take forward? And I think unless we really reflect when we're in it, it's going to be very hard to implement it where we come out and back into sort of normality. So I was going to pose that question, you know, 3 to 5 things that you feel you've learned about yourself. And then you can extend that on to, and it doesn't need to be positive. It can be negative things as well, but things that you've learned about yourself that you're going to make a change. So that when we all get back to charging about 1,000,000 miles an hour, we don't lose sight of what we enjoyed about this and what we learned.
Yeah, very, 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 very valuable. And I like it because exploring yourself is so easy to believe that you understand the other people straight away. Ah, yeah, I know that kind of person is that kind of person. Or, you just have the impression that you know the other person, but you don't know yourself.
Well, yeah.
It's very difficult to say, who are you? How you will react in situation like fear, or excitement, or it's very interesting. It's easy to give labels to other people, but if you have to give a label to yourself, which will be your label?
Well, that's right. How well do you really know yourself? Yeah. And like you say, to point a finger and to criticize, or maybe not criticize, but analyze, is so much easier when you're doing it to somebody else. But there's so much more value to be gained when you look at yourself.
Definitely, definitely. It's so interesting because basically we spend 24 hours with ourselves, but we don't know ourselves really well until something happens, and you find yourself in an uncomfortable zone, and you need to deal with that uncomfortable zone. So you are learning from something from when you are in that uncomfortable zone. You learn, but then you need the growth zone. So you need actually to use that learning to make something good for you, so toward the growth. But it's something that a lot of people, we all, I mean, happen to everyone, they find themselves in the uncomfortable zone, uncomfortable, then learning zone, but they never really go to the growth zone, because actually it's a jump. You know that what you're supposed to do. You know that you're supposed to do maybe more sport, or do eat differently, but you don't do it. The growth is always difficult to make
It's
that
very
happen.
difficult, but I think but that's where even knowing yourself just a little bit can make a difference. I have lots of clients that I try to pull apart. Are you self-motivated? Do you need to do things with other people? Do you need stimulus of other people's mind? Are you somebody that likes to sit, likes your own space? Or are you somebody that doesn't like your own space? And once you start to unpick even those high-level things about yourself, just being honest about, none of it is either good or bad. There's no label to be had here. But once you can understand that about yourself, then you can put in place structures to support yourself. There are so many different ways of doing this. What might work for one person doesn't work for another. This is why, when I'm doing my plans, when I'm coaching somebody, there is no one way. There really isn't. And I never sit there as a coach saying, look, I know how to get you from A to B, because it's here. It's a I don't know. It's sort of just a bit of science laid out. It isn't. There is science, well, of course, but overlaid on top of that is so much about that person, the way they function, the way their body reacts to things, the way their mind reacts to things. What are their limiters? What holds them back? It might not be their physicality, it might be their mind, but they think it's their physicality. Maybe it's their nutrition, which is where you guys come in. There's it's just being a little bit honest about yourself. Maybe getting out and working in a group is going to be invaluable. Maybe you're better off running on your own. Maybe you need the support network that a coach provides, but maybe you don't need that. Maybe it's just sort of unpicking that, because then you can put yourself in the position of growth in a in a supported way, and that's when the growth can really happen.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, Kerry, it's been such a pleasure to have you on the show. So, if people they wanted to get in contact with you, where they can find you?
Right. I'm on Instagram at Kerry Ultra. I have a website, which is kerrysutton.co.uk. I'm on Facebook, which is Kerry Sutton Perpetual Motion. And I think that's probably all of the different ways.
Fantastic, fantastic. So, thanks so much again for your time and to bring a lot of interesting exercise also to do, because yeah, we heard some very inspirational things to do during this period of the lockdown. So thanks so much for your inspiration, and I'm looking forward to have you again on the show.
Lovely, thank you. I've really enjoyed our chat. Thank you for having me on.
Here you go. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and please get in contact. You know that we are here for you. And check us out at 33fuel.com, where you can find high performance natural sport nutrition. It's very tasty, powerful, and designed to make you faster, healthier, and happier. So check us out at 33fuel.com. Stay tuned for our next show.